well as in terms of being supported? And how do you think the new current model will survive? Because I've also talked to some musician friends of mine, and they're actually very worried about the state of music after we get out of this particular pandemic and everything, and whether it will be, what the state of music will be, and how we will survive going through these many months of having this quiet time, both in the music world, the sports world, and some other worlds. So I was just wondering what your thoughts were about the music industry before this and the music industry as we're going forward.
Well, that's a complicated question. I'm going to try to answer it as succinctly as I can. First of all, I've accepted. I mean, I'm not lying on the floor in total submission, but I've accepted that jazz is not really popular music, but not when you compare it to even gospel music, which has a much wider audience last I checked. I think pop music and country music probably rule at this point. But I forget, there's always been a part of me that's been a little bit of a rebel. Who was it that said I wouldn't want to be a member of any club that would have me? Was it Groucho Marx or?
Yeah, I think that was Groucho that said that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, I'm saying that in jest because I would love to have a huge audience. I mean, I've got a pretty good audience, I think, but I'm not independently wealthy by a long shot. I mean, I stand to be hurt by this pretty badly if it continues for more than a couple of months. But I think that I've had mixed feelings about the music business for a while because I have mixed feelings about the way that most music seems to be being delivered to people. People aren't buying recordings as much. I think they'll buy your album if they go to a show and you're selling it. But I think they're more apt to buy a T-shirt if you have a T-shirt or something else. And what I'm getting at is that a lot of people are downloading, and I'm okay with downloading if they're paying for it. But the problem is a lot of people are streaming or they're listening on Spotify or iTunes or SoundCloud, and I have mixed feelings about it. On one hand, I know that a lot more people know who I am because I'm on those sites, but I also have done a lot of research, and I know that I think the average payout if somebody listens to your whole song, I don't know if it's an entire song, but they have to listen for more than a certain amount of time for it to count, and it's something like 0.04 cents per play. And it would take like over 3,000 plays, to receive $12, which is what I am charging for a download of most of my albums right now. It's $12 per album. So it would be like 3,158 people would have to listen on Spotify or one of the other services for me to receive the equivalent. So obviously that's not a recipe for making a living through recordings. However, I like to make records occasionally, and this is probably the last time that I'll put a CD out because people aren't buying CDs anymore. The next thing I do, I'll probably do high-res downloads and maybe LPs, vinyl, because I love the way vinyl sounds. But vinyl is very expensive. But I still like to document, where I'm at every few years. Not every 6 or 7 like I have been. I'd love to do it every year or two because it's good for artists to document their work so they can see where they are. And so it's reassuring to see that, at least for me, to know that I'm being creative and trying to move forward because that's... I think that's the point. It's really about the process. It's not so much about the gig or about the album. It's more about the process. And so for me, it's kind of an essential part of the growth. One more thing I wanted to say is that I'm going to do a solo guitar broadcast soon. Maybe if I could get my act together, I might do it on April 15th, which is traditionally Income Tax Day. Just to celebrate that we have a little longer this year to to deal with that. But if I can't get it together by then, it's going to happen in April, live from my home, from my condominium. And I'll let you know.
Yeah, please do. I would love to know about that, and I'll definitely tune in. Since they only want 5 people around, I doubt that I'll be in the condominium with you, but I would definitely tune in and watch it from the comfort of my own apartment and everything. So definitely do let me know, and I'll definitely tune in and check it out and see how that is going and everything.
Well, I'll let you know in advance, and then you could put in a request for something, okay?
I would definitely do that. I will put in a request for one of the songs. I've got a couple of ideas in mind. I might even have you do one of your originals because you've done some amazing originals, or I might have you, I also know that every once in a while you do a cover, but I prefer when you do your original. So I'll probably request an original of yours. I just got to figure out which one I'm going to request.
Well, I love doing. I don't call them covers so much because I change them around, but I love taking a classic tune and putting my own spin on it. The melody never gets lost, but it's my own take on it. But that's what we do in jazz or improvised music.
Yeah, definitely. That's what we do. And like I was talking about earlier, I know that we lost 2 masters of improvisation in my mind, and I'm sure that I'm thinking that since you know Branford, you probably knew Ellis. I don't know if you ever met Bill Withers, but both of those I consider to be true masters of improvisation during the height of their careers and everything. And it sounds to me like a lot of Bill Withers' attitude toward music is similar to what you are stating and everything, because I believe that's why he got out of the music business, was he got very frustrated with the way that the industry was going, and that was back in the 70s.
Well, I'm not really doing it for the money. I mean, that's why I teach. The teaching helps to supplement the performing. I don't have a choice. I mean, I know that sounds weird, but when I was younger, I was offered a couple of positions. One was a family business, and one was my uncle offered to set me up on the Chicago Board of Trade. And you can be sure that I've kicked myself more than a few times, 30, 40 years later, because it's not easy doing what I do. But I know that I'm right where I'm supposed to be. We also lost Bucky Pizzarelli. Did you hear about that?
I did hear about that as well.
We also lost Wallace Roney.
I did not hear about Wallace.
Wallace passed away last week, I think, or a few days ago. And, of course, wasn't he a kind of a protege of Miles? I think he and Miles were very close friends.
Wow. So we're definitely losing a lot of greats out of the music field and everything. And that's always a sad thing when we lose these iconic musicians, because I would consider all 4 of those tremendous icons in the music business. So it's always sad when we lose people like that.
Yeah, I did meet Ellis very briefly one time when I was walking off stage after performing with Lois. With Lois DeLoach at the tobacco place downtown Durham. I chatted with him for about 2 minutes, and he was very nice. And obviously, he's a giant, a giant in jazz.
Yep, no doubt about that. How do you think we're doing? And of course, we're going to see how it survives with the restaurants and everything. But it did seem like you said that jazz, in terms of being a popular music, wasn't all that popular. But it did seem like we were starting to get a rise in jazz performances, at least here in Durham. I'm thinking about places like the Fruit that were starting to do consistent jazz programming. Places like of course, Duke Performances has had regular jazz performances. There's the thing that John Brown does, which is the jazz jam at Mary Lou. And it did seem like, at least before this, there was at least in my mind, a peak in interest in at least people watching jazz. Did you notice that, or is that just maybe wishful thinking on my part?
No, I've noticed it. And don't forget, this is a plug for the Durham Jazz Workshop. We have the performance room, the Sharp 9 Gallery, and we've had all kinds of famous people perform there. And up until we had to shut down, we were, running, 2 or 3 shows a week. But I think Durham is kind of exceptional in that regard. I think unfortunately, I think Durham is the outlier. I live in Raleigh, And I don't think there are as many places in Raleigh where you can go hear jazz where jazz is really presented more as a performance. You know, I guess there's a number of bars and restaurants, but when you're talking about the Fruit or the Sharp 9 Gallery, and I can't remember now the other two places you mentioned, where it's presented more as a performance, those are two different things. Of course, I'm grateful that so many restaurants and bars were giving jazz musicians a chance to perform, because when I was younger, I used to do those gigs 3 to 5 nights a week, and quite frankly, that's where I figured out how to learn how to play, was in front of audiences.
Yep. That's the way we have to do it. Have to go in front of those audiences. And we've actually got one other guest I want to bring in as well. But I do want you to stay on the line, and I definitely want people to learn about I want people to find out how to get in touch with you and where they can hear this music. And I actually did the music you sent me. I did put some of it on our audio clip, so hopefully we'll get a chance to play some of that as well. But I did want to bring in Kenyatta. But before I bring in Kenyatta, I do have to tease you about something. You said that you thought about going to work in the Chicago trade, which would be like doing their version of the stock market, and that might be better. I'm not sure about that on this particular day and time. It seems like the stock market is fluctuating up and down and going all over the place. I'm not sure that you would have enjoyed it as much in this particular day and time as you might have earlier in your career when it was more steady. But right now, it seems like it's a serious roller coaster. So you might have been having just as many headaches as you were with the music, with the stock market, particularly in this day and time.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to argue with you. You make a very good point.
So this has definitely been a mess. Dean, if you could, bring Kenyatta on. And actually, before we do that, if you look down, I think that there's it should say Scott Sawyer, and it should bring up number. It can either be 2 or 8. I think I put in both of them. But it should be down there. It says Scott Sawyer. It's got Scott Sawyer, and it's got either 2 or 8. Right.
There's a number 2. Here it is, right here on Straight Talk with Dean and Mark.